of a lot of different people that you find yourself like caught between this spectrum of how do I get myself to a level of efficiency where I can be expressive and also connecting at the same time, you know? As opposed to the other side where it's like you're trying to grab as many people or as many ears as possible. You know, and if you can't grab those ears, those eyes, you're like, oh, I'm not successful.
It's like blending that perfectly.
Yeah.
I think that's the creative process in a nutshell. You know what I mean? Like, how much do you want to not conform, but I guess kind of create a piece of art for people versus how much do you want
for
to
the people
create,
by the people.
versus how much do you want to create a piece of art for yourself. You know what I mean? And I think that's actually a tough decision to make, because we all have natural desires to be liked and, you know, for people to like our art. And so whether or not or how much you sacrifice of your art so that people like it is an interesting concept, I think. You know what I mean?
I think a lot of people fall into that pit hole, especially when money's involved. Because if somebody comes up to you and says, hey, we're going to offer you a contract of like, what, I don't know, $5 million, but we have creative rights over what you do.
I think, me personally, having never created anything.
You have created something.
Well, yeah, but I don't think I could ever give away creative rights. You know what I mean? Like,
that is literally what you're
what
bringing to the table. Like
this is me, and if you own it, then why am I even here?
Exactly. Because you're a face.
Basically, you're just you're a puppet at that point.
Definitely.
But no disrespect to anyone who does that.
No.
I just think that there's a level that each person is willing to go to. In terms of what they are willing and not willing to give up. And I think for me, what I value in people's art is how much they choose to hold on to themselves. You know what I mean? Like, if you try something new or you try something different, but if I appreciate that you tried, then I'm gonna consume your art. You know what I mean? At least to some extent.
I feel like most people, or a couple of people that come to mind are like Dave Chappelle and J. Cole. Like, they got to a point where they're like, this is getting out of hand, or like my creative ability is going out the window or hindered. Therefore, I need to take a step back and either take a break from that whole, you know,
experience.
That whole experience and recuperate and regain what I had before. I was listening to something that J. Cole was saying. He's like, if you strive so hard to get what you want and make accomplishments to be put into a lifestyle that disconnects you from the thing that got you there in the first place. And it's like, and that's so true. It's like, especially when it comes to artists, that's why I feel like art is really difficult to monetize because. And I don't know if people don't really know this, but like the monetization of music is only recent. Like I would say the last, like, when I say recent, like as far as human history goes, it's like the last like 70 years have only been where music has been monetized. And what really did that was Motown. When they realized that, like, you know, you need a manager. And because what normally they would do is you would have, like, I guess back way when you'd have like patrons. So you would you know, perform your craft or whatever, perfect your craft, and then there's a ball happening at the local or like the kingdom or whatever. So they come bring you down and like play those tunes that we like, you know. And we'll pay you for it. And we're like, okay, we'll play those tunes. But they would never have artists like making music and then people buying that music that the artist has made, you know.
Do you think that is the monetization of art is a good or a bad thing?
I think it's a bad thing, to be honest with you. I mean, I think anytime you add capitalism in a consumerist environment, then it becomes.
But don't you think that monetizing art also gives the artist a way to live solely doing their art? You know what I mean? Like if I'm a musician or a writer or whatever, it's like by monetizing my art, I can then also be an artist solely. I don't have to support myself through any other means. It's like
I think, and I agree, but I think that there should be the same way that you have unions and pensions and things like that, this nature. I think as long as you're contributing art to the society, the only reason why monetization is around is to really to give people a what's the word I'm looking for? A marking point, I guess, a barrier to which you can say, okay, this person deserves X amount of money, you know. And I think that it is out there now. So for instance, I'll put this into perspective. So let's say you have artist A who sells CDs out of the back of his trunk, you know. I guess in today's day and age, it would be the similar equivalent of like selling off of SoundCloud, like Chance the Rapper. Yeah. You know, it's in today's age, you don't need to be to have someone give you money if your art is good. People will buy it because it's good. Yeah. You know, so, but I think prior to technology giving people the ability to do that, I think having some type of community, a musical community, where it's like if you participate in bands or if you participate in, you know, X, Y, and Z, then, you know, this union will protect you. We'll give you $20,000 a year just because you're part of this union. Yeah. And, you know, that can, the base borderline of living, I think you can get away with $20,000 a year, you know.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. I think that's one of the good things about what technology has done, though, is open it up to more streams into people's households. You know what I mean? Yeah, where it's kind of like if you are good, there is a demographic of people looking for you and who's willing to support you. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of it's almost the opposite now, where it used to be how do you get into people's houses and how do you have people consume your art? Yeah. And now it's almost so easy. How do you stand out in that environment? Sure. You know what I mean? And then that creates its own issues. I think that people have to address, but
think about like Live Independent, right? Yeah. So that could be the premise of Live Independent, is that we're a collective of individuals that support people who don't want to work at McDonald's but have that artistic ability, like, you know, they may do this or that, or they may be helping in the community, you know, just ways of getting around.
Definitely the purpose of starting Live Independent was to create like-minded individuals that understand the concept of being artistic and appreciating other people who want to be artistic, and creating that community of people to inspire, motivate, support, basically push forward as a group into, I believe, a new sort of functioning society, almost, where it's like where the expectations and values that we have been placing on things is no longer the norm. You know what I mean? Where it's like it's no longer important that you get a hit on the radio necessarily, as much as it is you spend time making quality work that a community is going to rally around and support because they want to, not because it's popular necessarily, but because they want to support financially or however they decide, they want to support you in that way. You know what I mean? Because I think at the end of the day, if you can get enough people who, like if I see your art and I can hear or I can read the effort that you put into that art, I want to support you by buying an album, by buying the book, by going to a show. You know what I mean? Okay. And if you can create a community of people that feel that way, then you can create basically an environment for artists to go that is safe in terms of, I guess, recognition.
So do you think that having an environment, or I guess a collective or community where artists can collaborate as well as like use that as a resource is kind of the focal point in which you can get rid of that starving quote unquote starving artist mentality?
Yeah, I mean, I think the goal would be to sort of change the idea of what a starving artist is, where it's like, look, if you can make, I saw an interview with someone one time and they were saying how they told their parents they wanted to be an actor. And I can't remember who it was exactly. I think it was, I want to say it was Dave Chappelle, but he was saying, he graduated high school and his dad asked him what he wanted to be. And he said, I want to be an actor. And his dad said, good luck, that's a tough business to make it in. And then he said, it just depends on what your definition of making it is, If you can make enough to just pay your bills and get through life, happy, then you've made it. You know what I mean? You might not drive the nicest car, you might not have the biggest house, but you have a happy family and all of your immediate wants and needs are taken care of, then you're successful at whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
And if you have enough people who can come together and be like, look, are you a New York Times best-selling author? No. But I liked your book. And I supported you, I bought it, and you made enough money off it for X amount of time. I like your album. Is it on the radio? No, but I'm going to support you. Then maybe we can get out of that mindset that success is only, hugely monetary and big cars and fancy shows and all that kind of stuff. If we can get out of that, then I think more people would be inclined to pursue their art.
Absolutely. I've been working with the Salvation Army recently, or last year and this year. And they have a really good concept that I didn't know much about the Salvation Army. Other than like you can donate clothes and other things to them. And they offer like aid to foreign countries, domestic and foreign. But that they are based off of cores,
core values.
No, like a core, like a Corona core. Like their locations, as far as location, and that it's the only thing that keeps them going are like donations, or like that's probably like the biggest thing that keeps them going are donations. And the music program that I'm working with now is trying to, or they get donations every year, enough to pay for like X amount of teachers, musicians, as well as counselors or whatever, and then they put together a summer program for kids that allows them to learn music and get involved in activities, this, that, and the third, and which is kind of like the concept that needs to be spread out even further, and for other things, like for musicians, for instance, because like this, we get mostly underprivileged kids, kids that because you're getting free music lessons and it's like free camp essentially. And parents can't afford that, so they're like, hey, but I still have to go to work, but I need somebody to watch my kid, I don't have money for a babysitter, and here's the Salvation Army to be like, oh, just drop the kids off here and the whole 9 yards. And I think that is a concept, and I know everything happens for a reason, and that is the reason why I'm there, is to get that foundation concept of like how to build a foundation. That's essentially what it is. Like, we need, if you give us money, we're going to produce art via the kind of collective community that we have. So with the connections that you have, the guy I'm working with, Marvin, he works out in Pasadena, and he has this whole like music program thing that he has going out there, and he was asked to like pretty much start from scratch the music program that we have out here in Ontario. And I was the guy he called up and amongst like a couple other local musicians that I know of. And with his connections and my connections, we're building a pretty solid foundation for, a good program.
That's dope, man. That's super dope. I think that's, in order to change one piece of the puzzle, the rest of the puzzle has to change. You know what I mean? So that's a step.
And vice versa.
Yeah, and vice versa. And it just works both ways, you know. It really takes a change of the structure of society, a change in the mindset of the people, in terms of what we're striving towards and how we're going to get there and what is important. You know, teaching underprivileged kids music is an important thing, not just in terms of like the immediate, like that day or that week, but in terms of that kid's life or how that kid perceives life to be. You know what I mean? That kid might grow up to be a different person because of the opportunity to learn music when without that program he wouldn't have had that, you know?
Sure.
And things like that is really what it takes in order to, I think, start having people be more perceptive of what we should really be striving for. In this country in general. It's a massive undertaking, I think, but, you know, it doesn't start unless we start. You know,
it doesn't start
unless we start it. So,
just do it. Thank you, Nike.
Nike can be a part of that.
Yeah, man, and I think that a lot of this is the age of wokeness. Like we're swinging into the pendulum of. And I have to thank technology. And the funny thing is because before this advancement in technology, if you think about like the past from like let's just say the 1800s to literally the 21st century, we've been putting together we've been in quote unquote survival mode this entire time. Yeah. So like trying to either, world wars or civil wars and then the Industrial Revolution, which is just like, dun, 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 like churn out as much profit as we possibly can. But I think like now that once we're in the mode of, we can actually like slow down. Yeah. Like that's all
like
it is.
Actually I look at it as the modes of information were cut off for so long that other powers could dictate what we saw, what we heard, what we understood the world to be.
Sure.
And then now with technology, it's opening doors and avenues into actual reality.
Yeah.
And now we can choose the system that we want to use moving forward. I look at it a lot like the 60s and 70s, like when that whole civil rights movement.
Civil rights too. Yeah.
Civil rights movement, and like people were generally coming to a state of higher awareness.
Sure.
But then I think there wasn't a method to capture it in an organized way to build something that we could sustain it with. And I think technology is that system where we can take the reins out of strictly big government control and break it into smaller, more bite-sized pieces that are more sustainable long-term and healthier long-term. And I think that's what technology is, but there is also, just like everything else, there's another side to technology that is working against that, that is, destructive and difficult to kind of take hold of and take grasp of. Like for instance, like this YouTube channel we created wouldn't be possible 10 years ago.
Actually technically it would, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because it's 2009 or 2008.
That's true. That's crazy. So way back, this YouTube channel would not have been possible.
20 years ago.
20 years ago, man, time flies. 20 years ago, it would not have been possible to spread these views like this necessarily. So that's a really, really great tool that we have. I think also there's a tendency to also watch things that maybe are less consciously productive and more destructive consciously. I fall into this a lot when I go on Instagram. There's a lot of really smart, good, well thought out arguments and things on Instagram, on any social media. Sure. And then there's also like ass and titties and people fighting in the streets.
Well, there's always going to be distractions.
Yeah, and it's literally just which do you choose to gravitate towards.
I mean, I think that it's up to the eye and not the beholder. I mean, so somebody, they may think to themselves, I work 9 to 5, 5 days a week or 6 days a week, and that day off or the 2 days I have off, I just want to turn my brain off.
Which is there. Hey, more power to you.
Right. But my point is that, I think there's a point where if we slow down, we can afford the time to activate different parts of our brain other than our brain's been beat to mush by work, and therefore when we get home, we just turn off everything, Yeah. As opposed to I worked semi-hard this week at work, and that's people, and it gets me every time when I'm at work, and I'm like, I think I'm gonna take tomorrow off, or the next day, or I'll take 2 days off. I'll have as many days as I want to take off. Yeah. People look at you like you're crazy. Yeah. It's like, no, I don't work for money. Like, if I want to work, I'll work. And well, I'm glad you have the luxury. They make it seem like I have a luxury of not working because, I have bills to pay. It's like, you chose those bills. Yeah. Like, you chose to have a car note. You choose to have a cell phone. You choose to have cable, and you choose to, all these other things.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's definitely something that takes stepping back and seeing what you value. Yeah. Because in honesty, if you have your basic needs met, like food and your rent covered and sheltered and like that, it's like, how much more work are you willing to put in for trivial things? I can't, is it important to you to work X amount of time so that you are exhausted so you can have shoes or, or nicer clothes? Yeah. And that's something that's, each person has their own thing, but I think there's a point at which that becomes more destructive as a greater whole. Because if everybody is doing that, then everybody is just trying to gobble up as much as they can and never pause to look at the guy next to them and say, "Hi, how are you?" You know what I mean? And I think I think that's the growth process of a person, and that's the growth process of a nation.